Hi, this is Rachelle with Live in Vibrancy, and I like to take manifesting principles and I like to break them apart a little bit, deconstruct them, so that you can identify areas that maybe they're not working for you, or that you're getting tripped up. Because ideally, so if I were to say use the law of assumption to step into an assumption, it basically is that you are not just thinking it, you're feeling it, right? And so your focus is on that it's already yours. You don't need to go about creating it. You don't need to be doing all these techniques because it's yours. So you just go about your day feeling that it's yours. And you don't need to focus on the thing that you don't want because it's already yours. So that thing doesn't exist. And so that is why I want to talk about focus and the emotional aspect of it. Because I talked a little bit about how if you are resisting this other thing, you're giving your energy to it and you are not in the assumption that the thing that you are creating is already happening. It's yours. In fact, your energy is kind of straddling between failure and what you have. And so we know that where our focus goes, our energy flows. And if you didn't before, hopefully based on my other video, now you understand that your negative emotions like fear and doubt are actually indicating that you are focused on failure. You are out of your assumption. And so you're actually sending your energy towards failure as opposed to really stepping into being what you want. And so I want to delve a little deeper into the role that your emotions play here. Because staying focused when you're manifesting reconciliation is incredibly important. And and so that's staying in the assumption, not necessarily like constantly thinking about it, because that's more like doing action. That's moving into the I need to do something to make it happen. Assuming is that it's already yours, and so you're keeping your emotions completely aligned. And so that's why I like to talk about the emotional component, because honestly, this is where I see people kind of fall off the rails the most often. And so when you're focused, because your focused attention creates reality, and when something comes up that we don't like, we have the tendency to focus on that. It creates an emotional response within us, and every time that thing happens, the emotional response amplifies. And your focus moves away from what we have and what's good or what works, and it shifts to what we can't tolerate and what we need to change in order to be happy. And so now you're resisting and you're focused on that lack. And so then usually we decide what to create in order to get away from what we don't want. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of law of assumption, even putting any energy or attention on what you don't want steps you out of your assumption. And you're looking at this lack. You're focused on the thing that you're resisting. So even if you're trying to create something new and amazing, your focus kind of stays hooked on your resistance to this thing that you can't tolerate. And so it's part of our natural process to notice the things we don't like and want. There was a time that focus kept you from being eaten by a predator. But it's important to recognize that that is part of your protection mechanism. And that also takes you into that lack, that takes you out of your assumption. Because I know that when something is mine, I'm not worried about the other things that aren't mine. And so we don't ever manifest from a place of lack and protection. You manifest from trust and no resistance, which is emotional alignment, which is assumption, which is having it. So this plays out a little differently in each individual relationship situation. But let's say you start having trouble in your relationship. So your partner's starting to spend more time with their friends and less time with you, let's say. And unless you're grounded really internally, the natural reaction to this is to start focusing on this change. And because you're putting your attention on it, you start noticing it more and more. And so maybe, hey, my partner didn't bring me a glass of water when they got themselves one. And normally they might. And so you start to notice these little instances more and more. And even though this probably isn't the first time, now that you have this internal resistance and this emotional disruption that's distracting your focus, part of your unconscious process is that your nervous system co-regulates with the people around you. So what's happening is you have this internal dysregulation, and your partner can feel that. And so they aren't conscious that this is happening. They're just aware of kind of the body feelings and the thought processes that go with this. And so all they now realize is that when you're around, they feel annoyed. And so that results in them wanting to spend less time with you. And then this validates your belief that they don't want to spend any time with you. And then you begin to notice more and more and more. And do you see how it kind of creates this snowball effect? And so now your original situation was just that your partner wanted to spend more time with friends is amplified. And the cycle continues. And then it continues to validate your belief that your partner doesn't want to be around you. And if you understand that people's interests and who they spend their time with kind of fluctuates, just as yours most likely does, unless you have reined yourself in for some reason, and also recognizing that it's not another person's responsibility to be your everything, and that that's a really heavy job, and that you wouldn't be focusing on how much time they spend with others if you actually were internally grounded. Right? So your desire to lean on them is going to show you something about yourself. And so love really includes reasonable personal freedom. It's not a series of he shoulds and she shoulds. The shoulding everywhere is a measure of control, and love is never about control. And so this is why validating yourself is really an important part of like a healthy, successful relationship. And from an energy perspective, that keeps your energy balanced, because now you're not being pulled into this low vibrational state or out of your assumption by focusing on what you don't have. And so what I never mean is repressing your feelings or making them wrong, because your feelings are coming up to show you something. And it should be an emotional experience. It could be, sorry, not should be, here's me shoulding everywhere. It could be an emotional experience that you need to resolve within yourself. And so I have a video on how to use chakras as a practical way to better understand what limiting beliefs are showing up and basically pulling you out of your assumption. So you can identify them based on where they show up in your body. So if it's showing up in your throat, it's a belief about your value, about the value of your voice, and about being heard, a fear, or maybe fears about being judged or condemned. And once you identify the basis of the belief, you can process out the energy and the emotional pain, and then you can really realign with your assumption, and it's far easier to stay there. If it's in your heart chakra, this is about connection. This is when we've experienced emotional trauma in the past, like rejection. We put up emotional walls around the heart to protect ourselves. And a closed heart blocks you from vulnerability, which really is required for that deep connection. And if you keep yourself disconnected from people, then it's really hard to create these relationships that you want. And if it's in your solar plexus, it's about your confidence. It's about your ability or your personal power. Do I believe I'm powerless? So if I want to assume that I can do something, but I get a knot in my stomach, then it's going to show me that I actually am harboring a belief that I'm powerless. Right? And so this is going to make it really challenging for you to stay aligned in your assumption. So relationships offer a mirror for where we aren't free. I know that, so everyone as you pushed out is essentially this. The people offer you a mirror for all the places where your emotional internal condition is going to come up, and they are then going to show up in a way that is aligned with that because of the way that you're filtering this information. So Alyssa Nobriga offers a really great framework to use to help you understand what's being reflected back to you. Because sometimes people will think that the mirror principle means that if my partner is being negative, it must mean that I'm negative. No, it means that you have a corresponding energy within you. And often, so if someone is showing anger, the corresponding energy to that is often fear. And so I'll talk about that in another video. But so Alyssa Nabriga's framework is when we see other people and they show up and we have a charge around their behavior, we want to recognize this is, as I said, this is the mirror principle. And so you can use these 3 questions. I am. So this means that they are showing up and they are doing something that you are also doing in your life, but that you're judging yourself for. They could be showing you an I could. So this is a place where they are showing you something that you actually could be doing, but perhaps you're holding yourself back from doing. Then you could ask, I wish. Are they showing me something I wish that I could be doing? Something that I have the potential to do, but maybe am not doing. So in this instance, because I was giving you an example of, so my partner is off spending time with friends and not that interested in spending time with me, how I would apply. Maybe I spend time with my friends while they're at work and I unconsciously judge myself for it. Or maybe I spend time with my friends while I'm at work. But either way, the point is I'm doing this somewhere in my life, but I'm unconsciously judging myself for it. And so the key to this is then to move into acceptance. I could. So this might be a place where I could spend time with my friends, but I have created all these shoulds in my relationship. So I'm in this relationship, so I should spend all my time with my partner. Therefore, I now expect my partner to spend all their time with me. And so we have sometimes these unconscious rules that we've created that are unspoken and that your partner is not aware of. And so now you're acting from this place of assuming that they should be behaving. You're measuring them by your own personal measuring stick. And so that rarely works. And so in this instance, it's where you could be spending time with your friends, and because the goal is always to internally source all of your own emotions to really shore yourself up. And that's when your energy is radiant. So if they are spending time with their friends, you take the time to spend with your own friends. And I wish. So I wish is very similar to I could. And in this particular instance, I wish would be you wish that you were spending time with friends, as opposed to whatever it is that you're doing. And so maybe you've drifted away from your friend group, or maybe you have kids and you've convinced yourself that you're the only one that can take care of them. And so now you've placed these limitations on yourself, and you've now also assumed that your partner needs to adhere to these, when in reality, you've just limited yourself, and you could reconnect with old friends, you could meet new people, you could find someone to watch your children. Really, it's a matter of recognizing where that is, and then understanding that that's some way that you've simply limited yourself. Because these limitations are the things that pull us out of our assumptions. And if you take a step back and you look at objectively at your limitations and see how you've projected them outwards into your life, you can see that these have created these constraints in your relationship that foster this negative focus, which then amplifies. So when you notice that your focus is on something that sparks internal resistance, take a moment and notice where that feeling is in your body. And then if it's about a person, ask yourself one of these 3 questions. Where is this an I wish? Is this an I am? Is this an I could? Because your focus and your subsequent negative emotions, they don't have to tank your current relationship. And it doesn't have to derail your reconciliation manifestation. And if you understand that they offer you an opportunity to find and clear the negative belief or limitation that you're carrying internally, then it's far easier for you to stay aligned with your assumption rather than to assume something and then be pulled off by these negative focuses. Because the universe will always deliver you the gift of people and circumstances that show you where you believe that you're limited, where essentially you're not free. And so it's all these places where you believe that you're limited or not free that are pulling you out of your assumption. And so if you understand how to see the world as a reflection, you are able to address this internally and resolve whatever's going on. Because an assumption is never about what someone else is doing to make you feel better. An assumption is always about internally sourcing the thoughts and especially the feelings. Remember that Neville said feeling is the secret. Therefore, if you're feeling your emotions are out of alignment, you want to look at that. Because if you just force them into alignment, the thing about emotions is they'll always come back, so they're going to force themselves back and you're going to be forced out of your assumption. So in order to stay really aligned, it really helps to understand what's coming up for you and then how to deal with it. So I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear your comments. And I offer coaching. And I have a Facebook group. You're welcome to join. The details are all in the description, and I hope you are having a fantastic Thursday.